Alice Walker's Pulitzer Prize winner, The Color Purple, was influenced by the events of her own life. Her writing began when she was 8 years of age when her brother accidentally injured her with a BB gun, forever partially blinding her. This caused Walker to withdraw from normal childhood life, and she isolated herself with writing poetry and reading. Alice Walker presents either racism and sexism, or sometimes both, in all of her novels. This has to do with her past of being active in the civil rights movement, which eventually led her to writing about sexism against women, which is portrayed in her most famous novel, The Color Purple. Alice Walker's novel tells the story of a slummy, unlearned 14-year-old girl named Celie, living in rural Georgia. At this age, Celie begins writing letters to God because her stepfather, Alfonso, abuses her physically and sexually. Sadly enough, poor Celie has been impregnated once before with a little girl, and is now pregnant again with the boy. She has not seen her little girl and assumes that Alfonso has killed her, which goes for her boy as well. Unable to protect her daughter, Celie's mother falls ill and dies, which is the first womanly relationship that Celie has that is exposed to the reader. Throughout the novel, Celie develops many relationships with a variety of women, such as a motherly relationship, intimacy, and friendship. After Celie's mother dies, Alfonso brings home a new wife, and yet still continues to beat and rape her. Later on, Celie's younger, smarter, and prettier sister Nettie attracts the eye of a man who is known as Mr. and wants to marry Nettie. Alfonso refuses to marry off Nettie and offers ugly Celie to Mr. instead. The reader then comes to find that Mr. has a promiscuous lover, Shug Avery, a lounge singer whose photograph transfixes Celie. Eventually, Mr. accepts the offer and brings Celie home to a miserable, rugged marriage. Soon enough, Nettie escapes from Alfonso and finds safety at Celie's house. But Mr. still prefers Nettie to Celie, and when he offers himself to her, she leaves Celie to be somewhere else. After never hearing from her again, Celie thinks that she is dead. The rest of the story unfolds, and Celie is introduced to many women whom she develops relationships with. Strong-willed Sophia, her daughter-in-law, becomes a great companion to her, and Celie meets Squeak, the girlfriend of Mr.'s son Harpo, and then the mysterious Shug Avery. Soon, Shug falls ill and comes to stay with Mr. and Celie. Upon first seeing her, Shug proclaims the ever-famous line, "You show is ugly." Although Shug is harsh upon her at first, they eventually become great friends, and Shug becomes a motherly figure to Celie. When Shug discovers that Celie is being beaten by Mr. when she is away, she decides to stay permanently, and a sexual relationship with Celie develops, and her motherly relationship fades away. To Celie's despise, Shug comes home one day with a new, rich husband, Grady. This does not stop their intimate relationship, nevertheless. One day, after questioning Celie about her sister, Shug comes to find that Mr. has been hiding letters from Celie that are from her presumably dead sister Nettie. Shug has a difficult time trying to hold Celie back from killing Mr. out of rage. The letters say that Nettie has been living in Africa as a missionary with a couple, Samuel and Corin, whose children come to resemble Nettie and are in fact Celie's children. After talking with Samuel when Corin dies of illness, she finds out the real story of hers and Celie's real father. Alfonso is not their biological father, and the real father was a store owner who was lynched by some white men because his business was so successful. But the house is in Alfonso's name so that he could inherit the house and the property that once belonged to their mother. After learning about this, Celie gets up the courage and curses at Mr. for all of the miserable things that he had put her through. She decides to leave Mr. with Shug and Grady to go live in Tennessee. Celie spends the majority of her time sewing pants for women and turns that hobby into a productive business while in Tennessee. And one day, when she comes back to Georgia for a visit, she finds out that Alfonso is dead and the house and land are hers. She eventually moves in. In Africa, Nettie marries Samuel and they come back to Georgia with Celie's children, Adam and Olivia, to find that Mr. and Celie have become friends and that Celie is financially, emotionally, and spiritually independent after all of those years of mistreatment. Although Celie is drowning with happiness, she says to Nettie that even though they are both old, she has never felt younger. The themes of sexism, paternalism, and racism are present in Walker's novel in many different forms. For example, Mr. mistreats his family because that was the way that his father had treated him, and Seeley tells Harpo to beat his ex-wife Sophia because she is extremely envious of Sophia's power and self-assertiveness. I think that the author did a very good job when describing and portraying all of these themes with her use of vivid detail and dialogue that helped make the reader almost hear the voices. I also found it very interesting that Walker did not stop at just one of these behaviors and chose to incorporate all of them into the storyline. They certainly send the proper message to people and unveil the horrors that come from them. Saturday morning, Shug put Nettie letter in my lap, little fat Queen of England stamps on it, plus stamps that got peanuts, coconuts, rubber trees, and say Africa. I don't know where England at, don't know where Africa at either, so I stir. Don't know where Nettie at. This quotation tells a lot about the character of Seeley, in that she has complete ignorance of the outside world because of the motherly and matronly roles that she is forced to take part in. This force of performing more womanly roles demonstrates just how much power that men had over women at this point in time. They had to sew, cook, clean, and tend for the children, or otherwise face cruel beatings by their husbands. Unfortunately for Seeley, she falls in this category because of her weakness and her unwillingness to fight back against men. In contrast, Seeley's friend Sophia does not take any mistreatment from any man whatsoever. She even goes as far as to beat her ex-husband Harpo when he tries to beat her. I think that Seeley and Sophia's friendship is so strong because Sophia takes part in the development of Seeley's strength when she curses out Mr. and leaves him. I believe that Seeley and Sophia are two complete extremes of how women could handle interacting with men during that time, and they are important to this book because they give the reader a sense of both sides of the spectrum. Something as simple and marginal as sewing becomes an important symbol in The Color Purple. Although it seems as something that is a womanly chore, Seeley takes it and turns it into something that helps her become financially stable, which is something that is very rare and almost unheard of at that time in American history. Another recognizable instance is after Sophia and Seeley argue about Harpo beating her. Sophia offers that they create a quilt together as a truce. The quilt was composed of many different colors and patterns, which signifies the unity of people who are very different from each other. As I said earlier, Sophia and Seeley are at either ends of the spectrum, and them creating this quilt only draws a parallel between them. God is one of the more obvious symbols in this book because throughout her writing letters to God, Seeley has seen him as an old, white man and does not have any real comprehension of who he is and if he is even listening to her. She claims that her image of him don't seem quite right, but writing to God is her only outlet. Later on, Shug tells Seeley that perhaps she should try envisioning God as an it with no gender and no race, just as a power that looks different to everybody. Soon enough, her mind begins to think about men and how many problems and how much suffering she has had because of them. She then takes this new idea of God and aligns it with her views of men. Instead of being vicious monsters, perhaps she can think of them as humans who have had harm done unto them just as her. Throughout the novel, colors represent a number of different emotions and transitions of the characters. For example, near the end of the book, when Mr. has reconciled, he paints every wall inside of his house fresh and white, which shows that he has started a new beginning. Also, the color purple symbolizes Seeley's religious revival when she marvels about all of the wonderful things that God has created, such as the color purple. Throughout the book, the combination of being a womanist and a feminist are found between the text, and Alice Walker did an incredible job weaving both behaviors in her novel. As Walker once said, "Womanist is to feminist, as purple is to lavender."